Welcome to You're Hired. I'm Lorne Epstein, your host today. On today's show, we are going to be talking about transitioning out of the military. There are quite a few million folks who have joined the military, actually 3.5 million people since September 11th who have joined the military. And they are all looking for jobs, or will be looking for jobs. So we want to talk about what happens when you leave the military. What are the options? We've got some really awesome guests that I'll introduce in a minute. But before I introduce our guests, I want to read you an article about the current veteran situation. So this article was written in the Pacific Northwest magazine, June 30th, 2016, just a few days ago. So it says here, since the terrorist attacks of 9/11 and the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, America has raised a whole generation of service members and combat-hardened men and women. 3.5 million people as of last year, who've been trickling back into their communities and starting over as private citizens. So military personnel who decide to transition back into civilian life and the civilian workforce face a rite of passage that can be as profound as joining the armed forces in the first place. There's a miserable job outlook, particularly during the Great Depression that we had, and recovery made the switch very difficult. Plus, a lot of folks really don't know what to do. Where do they go? On the job front, research by the Department of Defense indicates that pay for enlisted personnel went up by about 20% in the 8 years after 2001, after the Afghanistan invasion, and by more than 9% for officers. But comparison for the compensation for corresponding civilian jobs has stayed flat or dropped, which I can tell you is totally true. And that's regardless of the worker's education level. So despite civilian wages not keeping up with military pay, unemployment figures offer some encouragement. The unemployment rate nationwide for vets who have served on active duty since September 2001 has dropped from 7.2% to 5.8%. That was last year, as of last year, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, despite a third of those vets reporting a service-related disability. And the rate among all vets was 4.6%. So our goal here is to support people in having jobs they love and having jobs. And today we're going to focus on veterans. They are the backbone of the security of our nation. And irrespective of your political beliefs of the leadership, I think we can all agree that veterans make a huge commitment to basically give their lives, give their time, and sacrifice to defend our country and to do what is needed to support our security. So with me today, I've got some really special guests, really awesome folks. I'd like to introduce them to you. I have with me Andrew Morton. Andrew is currently with the Society for Human Resource Management after serving 20 years as an Army officer and then as an account director for an advertising firm. He is now honored to serve as the Director of Social Engagement at the SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. SHRM is a global HR organization with over 275,000 members and is recognized as the authority on the most pressing people management issues of today and in the future. Thanks for being here, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And also we have Brendan Devine. Brendan is a proven leader and professional with over 13 years experience in managing organizations ranging in size from 25 to over 1,000 individuals. Now, Brendan is a captain in the United States Marine Corps and just transitioned out of the military on June 1 of this year.
That's correct.
Yeah, thanks for coming and joining us, Brendan.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And also we have with us Patricia Cole, who is a retired captain in the U.S. Navy. And Patricia served 30 years in the U.S. Navy. Wow, that's a long time.
Thanks.
That's a long time. In a wide range of command and staff assignments in the United States and overseas. Her various duty assignments included tours at the Naval Network Warfare Command in Norfolk, Virginia, at ACOS, ACOS. What does that mean?
Assistant Chief of Staff.
Wow, that sounds important. For C2 systems and policy for 5th Fleet in Manama, Bahrain, Fleet Information Systems Officer for 7th Fleet in Yokosuka, Japan, and Special Assistant for Diversity to the Chief of Naval Operations in Washington, D.C. She was designated an Information Dominance Warfare Officer. Wow. That's a title. The dominance officer. In October 2010, she retired in February of 2012 following her last assignment. And she's currently working at the Military Officers Association. And what's your role at MOA?
I'm a deputy director for a transition or a career transition center that we have there.
So Patricia is Pat is one of our resident experts on making transitions. And then also we have another guest with us, Karin. And Karin, can you say your last name? Because I don't think I said it right.
It's hyphenated, Childress Wiley.
Childress Wiley. Okay, but it's Childress.
Yes.
Childress.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so Karin, she has nearly 20 years in the human capital industry, with 12 of those years spent at Monster.com and Military.com. Those are websites. Monster.com, as we all know, is a website where you post your resume and jobs are posted. And Military.com is the same for folks who are leaving the military. Today, she's the National Director for Veteran Recruitment and Media Strategy. She travels the nation leading a small group of media experts as they coach, cajole, and support both the Monster team and agency partners on behalf of the leading Fortune 1000 and most sought-after employers in the U.S. and globally. Her role is to inspire conversations, growth, education by telling the Military.com story in an impactful and meaningful way. Thank you for joining us, Karin.
Thank you for having me.
Karin's also one of our resident experts. So why don't we'll just go around, and if you could just share with us what you're currently doing around this topic. So Andrew, why don't you start off?
Sure. So, the director of social engagement, my mom actually thought I was running a dating site when I first got that job title, but Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM, is the HR professional organization with 280 some odd thousand members who are HR practitioners across all different types of focus within human resources. And as you know, Lorne, as one of them, not only a HR practitioner but a member, you know that it's been shifting over the course of the last few decades to more of a strategic role. And one of those roles, obviously, is talent. And as you alluded to at the beginning of the show, there's no more important, perhaps, transitioning group out there in terms of segments than the veterans transition. Tens of thousands each year across all different types of occupational specialties and just in career sets. Me specifically at SHRM, relative to what I do supporting veterans transition, I'm very fortunate to be a part of a lot of different efforts across both grassroots and at the national level. SHRM, like the military, works best at the grassroots level. The closer we are to the Pentagon sometimes, the more we forget about what it's really like down at the grassroots level. And our SHRM chapters are doing things across the country for veterans transitioning, working with ESGR, Employee Support.
What's ESGR?
Employee Support of the Guard and Reserve is an organization mandated basically to focus in support of originally Guard and Reserve service members across all the services. But since 9/11, really, they've been focusing on transitioning for all federal Reserve, Guard, or what have you, because, the challenges incumbent upon a decade and a half of protracted wars has really made it a challenge for veterans to transition back and forth, whether they're retiring or coming off of active duty. So we work with the SGR. It's really as part of that triad between human resource professional, transitioning individual, and the job employment community, and ESGR kind of serves as that veteran advocate. So it really is about that. And I've had the great pleasure of working some national level initiatives with SHRM as a part of what we're trying to do to support the veteran community, both altruistically, but also because it makes good business sense to hire veterans. I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit. And then really focusing on the grassroots efforts and making sure people are aware of the opportunities that they have, both the HR practitioner and the military service member, because I really talk about this transition from the world of we will in the military service to at will. And that's a huge cultural transition, above and beyond the job skills and everything.
Yeah, so I want to come back to that we will at will. So let's go on to the next person, but I definitely want to talk to you about that. So Brendan Devine is here with us. Brendan, tell us what you're up to.
Well, as you mentioned, I just separated from the Marine Corps on June 1st of this year, and right now I'm really just in the midst of making that turn from military service into the civilian workforce, and just not even fully complete transitioning back from Okinawa, Japan, where I was with the 3rd Marine Division. So I'm fortunate I came back to the D.C. area because this is one of the more fertile job markets for veterans, particularly officers. And I'm right now focused on, defining my path. What am I looking for? What do I want to do? What do I fit with best? Crafting my resume in such a way that it sells me to the types of positions I'm interested in, and just trying to kind of define myself to the civilian world, making that translation of what I've been doing for the past 13 years into terms that they can understand and terms they find attractive. So along with that, I'm working on building my network. I'm attending networking events. I've got one coming up on Tuesday morning. It's focused on veterans and veterans in the consulting government contracting industry. So it's really, I consider myself fortunate because I come from a dual income household. So I have some pressure taken off me, and I'm able to take my time and kind of really figure out what it is that, because I spent the preponderance, almost totality of my adult life in the military, and trying to figure out what you can do for the 3/4 of my working life I have left. It's a daunting task, but there's no shortage of opportunities out there. There's no shortage of resources.
Well, you're literally surrounded by experts.
Yes,
and people who want to support you. So we'll hang tight. We'll get back to some of those things. And Pat, why don't you kind of tell us what you're up to? Because you're working on solving Brandon's problem. And not just Brandon, but millions of other soldiers.
Yes, much of what Brendan said resonated with me. I transitioned just 4 years ago and was fortunate to come to work with a great organization. As you probably know, MOA's primary mission, if you will, is to advocate for military pay and benefits. We are the largest and most influential organization, Association of Military Officers. But we also have a career transition center, and working in that center, we have for many years assisted veterans and military spouses as well with the transition from the uniformed services into the civilian careers. In 2015, we connected more than 3,500 veterans and military spouses with over 150 military-friendly employers. We did that through a nationwide program of...
Sorry, when you say connected, you mean you got them hired?
No, this facilitated their ability to meet with employers who have specific interest in personnel with a military background.
Gotcha. And do you know how many of those got hired?
No, those are not statistics that we're able to track very, very easily.
Gotcha.
And the focus of our Career Center is to equip veterans with the skills that they need to be successful in conducting their own job search. We also have conducted nearly 175 Marketing Yourself for a Second Career presentations. We do that nationwide. We travel to military installations around the country, and that reaches about 600 people annually. And then we also have a one-day seminar that we call Military Executives in Transition. It emphasizes those core competencies that you need to have to be successful in your job search. So resume development, networking, informational interviews, interview preparation, negotiation strategies, and how to ensure you're going to be successful in the first few months of a new position that you do get.
So, and that's just for veterans?
For veterans and for military spouses.
Okay, and is it just for officers or is it for enlisted as well?
Well, the presentations that we give nationwide are open to military members of all ranks. The transition seminars that we put on are primarily for military officers. They're optimized for military officers.
Okay, well, we're going to get into some of the resources that you guys provide. And Karin, tell us what you're up to right now. I know that you kind of have a unique position in that you work for both Monster.com and Military.com.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm one of the lucky few people out there that gets to wake up every day.
I'm sorry, we can't hear you.
My dream comes true.
We're having a technical difficulty. So while we get Karin back, let's get into, Andrew, one of the things you didn't mention was that you had been in the military for 23 years?
Actually, just over 20 years, about 20 years, 6 months.
And what did you do?
So I started off as an infantry enlistee. After college, I realized that the English and theater majors I had were probably going to not get me too far. And I kind of had a friend, a mentor, who was a couple years ahead of me who had done ROTC, which I had not done. And he really kind of had a sit down with me and told me that I would probably benefit from that opportunity. So I enlisted in the military immediately following graduation from school. And I spent about a year and a half to 2 years enlisted, and then I went to officer candidate school. and became an infantry officer, where I spent about 13 years on active duty as an infantry officer across many different assignments in many different parts of the world: Macedonia, Bosnia, Egypt, Afghanistan, Iraq, working ROTC assignments at Virginia Tech, which was an incredible experience, and then some other staff assignments across the United States. So, that whole experience was a great one. I transitioned to the public affairs realm, not unlike Brendan. We basically have our one skill, and then in many cases through our careers we transition to what's called functional area or career field, and mine was public affairs, and I had some great opportunities to work with a number of amazing people over in Iraq and do media affairs over there with Arabic media. Again, these experiences really, I think the reason why I kind of bring that up is because there's a sea of goodwill, as Admiral Mullen had said. It's an amazing sea of goodwill. You alluded to it. People here in the United States have supported the military in so many ways we're so appreciative of. But there is also probably a misunderstanding or a lack of understanding about what we do and who we are. And I think service members in these day and ages, in this kind of terrain that we've worked in over these last 16 years, have done some incredibly robust things that employers don't fully understand or appreciate, those intangible skills, if you will. But that global understanding, that global acumen, which is one of our HR competencies, it is an amazing thing to kind of bring back with you into the civilian workplace.
That's great. That's awesome. So, Karin, why don't you tell us what you're up to? You have a unique position in that you're both leading work at monster.com and at military.com, which are two job websites.
Yep, that's right. And I'm one of the lucky people that gets to wake up each day to my dream come true job. So what I do at monster.com and military.com is lead their veteran employment strategy. Many people don't realize that military.com is owned by Monster. And so I work with my companies that I support to bring together what both companies are able to do. So to combine what Monster is really great at, which is understanding the employment marketplace, employment trends, employees, employers, and layer that with what military.com is really great at, which is connecting to the veteran community. We're actually a lot more than just a job board. We have 10 million members that are part of military.com's online community, which is designed as a resource portal for information like benefits and financial knowledge, education, and jobs.
So when you say education, is it tools like Pat was saying about teaching military veterans how to interview, how to write their resume, how to translate their skills from the military into commercial sector?
Yeah, that's all certainly a part of it. Also information on understanding industries and how industries are using skills in areas across the country.
And these are free. I'm sorry, these are free resources, right? For folks, Karin, they can just go to the website at military.com and get this information.
Yes, everything on our site is free to the veteran or the potential employee or candidate.
That's great. That's a great service. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure that we knew where that information could be gotten.
Sure, absolutely. So I bring those two projects or programs together and then work with employers, work with companies who are looking to either develop or maintain a veteran recruitment program. And I like to think that I bring the voice of that veteran community into these conversations. I'm a military spouse. My husband's been in the Marine Corps for about 20 years. And so as I connect military.com, monster.com, and the employer together, we work to build out authentic, real veteran recruitment programs that go beyond just simply being veteran-friendly, but really understand the veteran, their needs, how they can fit into the organization, and help that veteran get employed at the job they really want.
That's great. That's awesome. So, Brandon, let's get back to the problem statement here. So, what do you think the biggest challenge is for you? Because you're at the top of the funnel, right? You're the warfighter just coming out of the military, right? And you've had some separation time. Did they give you some pay to kind of bridge?
They do, yeah. They give you a separations pay. It's basically a severance to get you through however many months you need. It comes out to about a year's salary. And, one of the biggest challenges you confront coming out of the military is, as Andrew mentioned, there's a pretty large disconnect between the population as a whole and the 1% of the population that served in the armed forces over the past 15 years. It's not like the American population in the 50s where majority of people had some kind of connection with the military. They understood the military. They understood what people did. When you come to somebody with a resume and say, this is what I've been doing for the past 13 years, they got like, oh, okay, yeah, I know what that is, or I know what that means. Vast majority of the civilian workforce out there doesn't really understand what our jobs entail and what we tell them what our experiences are. You have to, there's a translation that has to happen there between what you've done and what you want to do. It's possible, but that's one of the biggest challenges I've found is, the military, particularly the Marine Corps, I'm sure the Army's does it just as well as we do. Maybe not quite as well, but close.
There's that rivalry.
They're very good at teaching you how to respond in dynamic situations, complicated situations with a level of uncertainty, not a full knowledge of what's happening. That you're really good at.
That sounds like just about every job I've ever had.
Mm-hmm. But they're you'll get trained to do one thing. I'm an artillery officer by trade. That's what I was trained to do, which has zero translatable skills to the civilian world. But they will take you from job to job and drop you in a job with a large number of individuals under you that you may or may not know anything about, and they'll say, figure it out, get from point A to point B. And it's those soft management leadership skills, the communication ability, those things you need to kind of take and massage so that the civilian employer understands. And
so let's get back to the problem statement. So it sounds like the main thing is that the civilian workforce, which is 99% of people in this country, employers, don't know much about the military. Don't really know how it works, how these jobs translate, what a veteran can do or can't do. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's accurate? Would you all kind of, do you have a thought about that? What you think the main challenge is? Karin, do you want to share what do you think that main pain point is? Because you're right there also on the other end, right? You're hearing it from employers, but you're also hearing it from veterans.
Yeah, I agree with the statement that you just made. I think a lot of employers have decided that they understand that a veteran makes a good hire, but they operate off of some stereotypes about what that means, perhaps which roles those veterans could fill inside of their organization.
What are some of those stereotypes?
Well, the one that I hear a lot is about solving the problem for the transitioning veteran, moving people directly from their military occupational specialty or the job they had in the military into an exact translation in the civilian employment world. And there isn't always an exact translation, as was just pointed out. And I think that that's the problem that the employers don't know how to solve, is that how do I incorporate both hard skills and soft skills in that transition and translation, especially when employers rely so heavily on technology today outside of the veteran space to do resume screening and frontline scoring and ranking of candidates. And technology just can't understand some of the soft skills that were just described.
No, it's interesting because a lot of employers now are taking up the mantra of hiring for culture fit, hiring the right person and teaching the job.
I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt.
You can interrupt.
Oh, well, I think...
Stop interrupting.
You mentioned the culture, and I think it's important, for culture to work, there needs to be kind of an understanding of what one is getting into and then maybe what one is getting. I mean, you talk about this a lot in your book. And I think, buyer's remorse and hirer's remorse, so to speak. And I think one of the things that we're so used to in the military is making it work, getting it done, fitting that square peg in a round hole if it has to be. I mean, an artillery officer becomes a de facto town mayor somewhere in Afghanistan because that's what they need to do to help with what's needed. Pure water is the need. It's not artillery. So therefore, a young Marine officer and non-commissioned officer has to figure out how to get water to that village in Afghanistan. devoid of anybody else being able to do it. So I think that's an important thing to remember, is that the military are used to being very flexible. And I think there's this perception, perhaps, maybe not in the HR lexicon, but just overall perception that we're hierarchical, we're rigid, and we have to stay the course and focus on a particular mission. When, be quite frank, it's been anything but that. It's been very asymmetric, and hierarchy is not necessarily important per se. And I think there's this cultural perhaps misperception that veterans do well in organizations that have a lot of hierarchy and that have a lot of structure built to it, when actually veterans do very good in organizations that are flat and they don't bring the rank. I mean, you asked all of us kind of beforehand, how should I introduce you? Not one of us, and I venture to say 99% of us, don't want our military rank to be a part of our introduction when we're sitting here at the table, because that was a previous life. And while we bring those skills, and we certainly bring that can-do attitude, we realize that that's not something that kind of makes us better than anyone else in the next organization we're going to be in.
Thanks. And Karin, you were going to say something?
Well, I was really going to echo those same sentiments and maybe expand to when I talk to veterans and I'm asking them, trying to translate both hard and soft skills, what they want to do, the answer is, I don't know. I can do anything. And I think that there remains this confusion, as was just said, about which areas in an organization a veteran could be a good fit.
So, Pat, what would you tell an employer about hiring veterans?
I would tell that employer that a veteran would make a tremendous addition to the team that they already have in place. Look at the things that make veterans such strong performers. They're incredibly loyal, both to their organization and to the team with which they are placed. They have a large well-honed set of transferable skills derived from the world-class military training for which the United States military is very well known. They're, as has already been alluded to, they're incredibly adaptable and flexible. They have a bias for action. So this is not going to be the employee that just kind of sits there and waits for someone else to address a need or a problem or an issue. There's a reason why we have the greatest military the world has ever seen, and it's because of the personnel, not because of the technology. And that is what an employer is getting when you hire one of these really strong men and women with a long proven record of past successful performance.
Now, a lot of employers and a lot of people have a bias that people in the military blow things up. That's what they do, right? The military is designed to do a lot of damage and destruction. What would you say, Brendan, about that, given that, hey, you were a soldier and you must have destroyed stuff?
Well, you insulted him by calling him a soldier because he's a Marine, but that is part of that.
Oh, right. Excuse me.
You don't need to get into that distinction. But, we do, the military exists for one reason, and that's, to fight and win battles and protect national security, and we do train to blow things up and destroy things and stuff like that. But that a lot of things. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that the American military, especially today, is a very extremely intellectual force. It's a very professional force. You focus on having thinking men and women on the ground that can make decisions in a split second notice and as Pat said, have a bias for action. So that translates to people coming into the workforce that they're not mindless drones that have been sitting around following orders for the past 4 years. They are very wise beyond their years and extremely mature and very good at making decisions and managing situations and organization and leading people, motivating people to get things done. And so there are some misperceptions out there, but it's hopefully it's, organizations like MOA can help people understand what it is that we bring to the table.
I thought it was interesting when we talked earlier. You said that as an officer for an artillery unit, most of your skills are in project management, program management, logistics. Mm-hmm. And not really at the point of the spear, those skills are really quite translatable, right?
They are. They're definitely translatable. I mean, the hard skills I bring are the things that are not translatable. How do we get this artillery shell from point A to point B and hit what we want to hit? It's not something that
Microsoft is not going to hire.
But there's 100 things that need to happen before that artillery shell is going to hit point A to point B. That's everything from the motivational skills to making sure the vehicles are running properly, making sure you're in the right place, making sure that everybody has the training they need, making sure that service member who has been coming to quote-unquote work for the last week, who's looking more and more disillusioned, we figure out what's going on with that particular individual and help them get back to where they need to be a functioning part of the organization, more importantly, to be just taking care of the whole person. So all of that, really, frankly, is about what it is before that artillery round is launched downrange.
Yeah, that's as you said, Lorne. There's a whole variety of areas that you dip into. There's leadership, there's logistics, there's management, there's human resources, there's even motivation and a little bit of counseling and psychology that you kind of get experience with over the years. That it really helps develop a dynamic skill set that you can bring to bear. I mean, you drop anyone with a half brain, and majority of the organizations out there, no matter what the field is, given 6 months, 12 months, they'll figure out how to do the technical stuff. It's the non-technical soft skills that they bring with them that are really the valuable piece that they bring to whatever organization they're going to do.
So, Karin, tell us about the technology. I know that there's something that it's either Monster or military.com have that actually helps in translating those skills, the MOS codes and those kinds of things. Don't you guys have something like that?
Yes, military.com has what we call our military skills translators. We're not the only one. Lots of these types of resources exist, but I think what makes ours unique is that it does have the ability to merge in rank, which we all know in the military, rank does matter. Someone who's been in the Army for 4 years in a particular job has a different set of experiences than somebody who's been in the Army for 20 years in that same job. So it takes into consideration rank, and it also allows you to add civilian skills, collateral duties, trainings that you may have received. So it creates more of a complete picture of the veteran and what they did in the military beyond simply the MOS code.
And again, that's a free service that they get. And how do they use that? How do they have to put a resume in, or?
Yeah, there's two ways that a veteran might come in contact with a skills translator. The first is on military.com. Simply go to the site, to the Veterans Jobs section, and translate your skills. Put in your MOS code, your rank, your branch of service, any civilian responsibilities you've had, collateral duties, and it will match you to open positions right now today from employers who have chosen to list their jobs on military.com and or Monster. But moreover, many organizations are buying the skills translator and installing it on their own career site. So when you interact with that company's career site, you're being matched to the open positions of just that one company.
Well, that's a great service. Karin, I have a question for you, because this is clearly very personal for you because your husband's in the service. Why do you do this? What has you choose this particular work?
That's a great question. I authentically and genuinely believe that our veterans need to have the best jobs available to them. I've seen and experienced that there are challenges in transition, and I think that part of the conversation that's being missed, and the reason I so passionately talk about it frequently, is not just getting the veteran a job, but getting them a job they love, that satisfies what they loved about being in the military, the camaraderie, the brotherhood, the ability to give back. And so I do this so that I can educate veterans on what's available to them, but probably more importantly, educate the employers on the value that veteran brings and how to set up not just hiring the veteran, but programs that will keep them engaged and retain that veteran long into the future.
Awesome. And I'm going to put the same question to you, Pat, because clearly you had a long career in the military. Now you haven't gone off and done something else. You're now right there.
Well, as like so many veterans, Lorne, I came out of the military without any idea of what I wanted to do. I was an information professional in the Navy, basically a communications officer, and it was a great career for me, one that I did very much enjoyed, but it was not what I chose to pursue when I left the military. Anyone who's familiar with comms knows that it's something's always broken and someone's always screaming. So I was very good at it. It's what the Navy chose for me. But I really wanted to, explore what my other options were. Not having any idea, I reflected on past jobs that I had and what I enjoyed. And one of them was public speaking. So I thought if I could have an opportunity to do something like that, that would be great. And the other component that was very important to me was if there was a way that I could continue to help people, because it's something we do very often in the military with the people that we lead and with whom we serve, I thought, well, that would just be icing on the cake. So when this opportunity with MOA when it came along, I recognized immediately this was an opportunity that I would have to continue serving the veterans who make up this great country of ours. So it's pretty ironic that our tagline at MOA is "Never Stop Serving." It was just
You took that to heart. So how did you get your job? That's a transition, right? That's a transition story.
Yes, and we
and
say
when you're done, Andrew, I'm going to want to hear yours because you've transitioned.
I could tell you how I lost one too.
Oh, awesome.
The tendency for military folks is to focus on resumes because we don't know a lot about the skills that you need to have when you're coming out of military service, but we do know you need a resume. Well, no one gets hired because of a resume for many of the reasons that we've been talking about here already. The focus is on the skills and those particularly those soft skills, but networking is the most important thing that you will do. My final assignment was in Hawaii. It was wonderful, of course. And because I had done 30 years, I wanted everyone I knew to be aware that I was finally concluding my career and ready to move on to whatever the future held for me. So I sent out invitations to my retirement ceremony to everyone that I knew, literally everyone that I knew. And without realizing it, I was essentially networking. From those invitations, I got a call from another captain in the Navy that I had worked with a number of years before. I had not spoken to her in quite some time. She didn't get one of these invitations. She just found out that I was transitioning. But she called me to congratulate me, and we caught up a little bit. But she learned that from that conversation that I was not going to remain in the comms IT field, and that I was relocating back to the Washington D.C. area where I still had a home. So that was well and good. But we fast forward about 3 or 4 months. She called me to say, "Hey, Pat, I know about a job that you might be interested in." And she introduced me to the president of that company, and I interviewed with him and with the other members of the executive staff. And although I did not get that job, it led directly to me being referred to the Military Officers Association of America.
Who made that referral?
The president of the other company that I interviewed with. Because, of course, he was very well aware of my background and my experience through this long process of interviewing.
And was he a veteran?
Yes, he is. And, I often tell this story in the presentations that I give and to people with whom I work, veterans that I work with, to emphasize the very key point that other captain, I would not have characterized us as close friends. And as I said, I had not spoken to her in a number of years. And yet she became the person that was directly responsible for my current happiness. So networking is just about these casual relationships that you have. It's not someone that you're imposing upon. It's just leveraging these relationships that you already have. We already network in many other aspects of our daily lives. You're just, when you're trying to find the best school for your kids, or perhaps you're looking for a good mechanic or a new hairdresser, you just take that same approach and apply it to your job search. So I feel very, very fortunate to work with such a great organization, and it's a daily pleasure to assist other veterans who are looking to do the same thing.
Awesome. That's great. And Andrew, what was your experience? Because you transitioned when?
I retired from the Army in 2012, and not unlike, I think, a lot of the other folks around the table, one of the things was to have a communication with somebody who's on the other side of that, maybe 2 or 3 years ahead of you in that whole process. No matter whether or not they spent 2 years in the military or 22 years in the military, it's good to reach out to people in what I call the deep end of the pool, the private sector. For me, really, I wanted to be in something that was completely different than what I had been in before, maybe using some of the same skills, but I wanted to really be in the private sector. So I did reach out to mentors that were in the private sector. And I will tell you that, two words that military aren't used to hearing are "you're fired," and 2 words that they rarely ever utter is "I quit." But in reality, when you aren't in that right fit, that right purpose, that right job, as you transition, you sit there with your military ethos going, well, I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to make it work. I'm going to work hard. And I was in one of those situations where I learned a ton at the first organization I worked for. They were great to me. I brought a lot to the table, and I learned a lot. But as time moved on, as months moved to a couple of years, I realized it wasn't the right fit. And I was in a difficult situation, and then walked into that employer's office, as you can imagine, Lorne, and HR was there, and then I realized that my days were over with the organization. Not for anything negative or anything else. I wasn't, quote-unquote, fired. It was just a restructure. And I realized, as I left home that day, I wasn't upset. I was actually relieved. And I was relieved because it wasn't my purpose to work in that organization. Now, fortunately, I had people tell me the number one thing you have to prepare for is be prepared to get fired. So in other words, be prepared to know what your next is. Be prepared to still have your mentors and the other people you can reach out to. And that's how I became a part of SHRM, was through that network. And it was the right fit. It was the right purpose. It was the right connection for me because, all of us are from different services. Pat's from the Navy. Brendan's from the Marine Corps. I'm from the Army. And, of course, we have a wonderful military spouse on the line. We're all different in that respect, but what bonds us all together is purpose. You want to have purpose, whether it's as a stay-at-home single dad, Brendan, which you may end up, or stay-at-home dad, which you may end up becoming, or whether it's an executive in a corporation. We want that purpose, and we want to work with organizations that have a culture that has a purpose, an organizational purpose. So one of the things that I enjoy for SHRM is not just helping veterans find jobs through whatever means, our chapters and everything else, but that whole life cycle of employment, as Karin alluded to, being engaged, being purposeful, having a position where you feel like you're value added to the organization. You don't have to save lives to do that. You don't even have to change lives to do that. You just have to be in a position where you feel like you're a valued commodity and you're doing what you're supposed to do.
Cool.
It's such an important point, Andrew, and I think that that's a place that employers are moving to today, recognizing that at that about 1 to 2 year mark, they start to lose the veterans they work so hard to hire, realizing that they need to focus as much or more energy into serving the veterans after they're hired. And so we're beginning to see things like veteran employer resource groups and mentorship programs and additional trainings and ways in which the veterans can band together and give back to the veteran community. So I would say in 2017, those are trends that we'll see our trend-setting veteran employers focusing on. And for the veteran, when they're searching for a job, now they can look for companies who have jobs that suit their skills. They can look for companies who have jobs that suit what they desire to do. And they can ensure that these companies have programs in place for their continued employment.
I could say I've been in the deep end of the pool for 36 years having jobs, and the workplace has changed significantly over the decades. And right now, companies are really focusing on culture, and they're focusing on they're putting a lot of a focus on millennials, who are as big a population as the baby boomers, about how to keep them engaged. And so a lot of the things that you guys are talking about, that, purpose. I mean, I don't know anyone who doesn't want to have purpose at work, right? It's important to feel like we're doing something other than just turning a crank, which a lot of jobs are. It's coming to the surface for employers because it is getting competitive to hire people. And if you can provide a great culture, if you can provide a purpose, not just a salary, not just benefits, but a reason to be there, then you're going to keep people. And I get that that's really important. And I want to get back to Brendan, because we only got a few more minutes. But, Brendan, I want these folks to help you. So I want to, earlier before we started, Andrew said that Brendan's in the breach. So, what do we do right now for Brendan to support him? And I'm gonna start with you, Pat.
Well, what I would tell Brendan is to, just take a deep breath, relax. It is going to be okay. Veteran unemployment is at 4.2%, I think it is. I mean, very, very low, below the national unemployment rate. So it really is going to be okay. As you've alluded to earlier, you're in a good position. You have a working spouse. So keep an open mind as to what your options are. Network aggressively. And I commit to you, I'm happy to work with you from this point forward to assist you in your transition, because I'm very grateful to your for your service to our great nation. But I want you to be confident and optimistic that everything is going to work out well. You're not going to just find a job, you're going to find the job.
So, and Karin, do you have anything that you can right now offer as either wisdom or what Brendan could do to improve his chances of getting the job that he wants, which I think right now Brendan wants a job in either project management or program management?
I think that's probably the best fit for me, particularly in this area. And, a lot of us tend to gravitate back towards, there's two types of guys that get out.
I hate to interrupt you, but we're going to be running out of time soon. But so give us your email address, Brendan, because I have a feeling that there may be an employer listening who might want to hire you.
My email address is brendan.devine, BRENDAN.DEVINE @gmail.com.
Cool. Awesome. And so because we're wrapping up, I want to just get a last couple of bits. But Pat, you offered to support Brendan. How could you support other people who are listening? What could they do? How could they reach you or reach your organization?
Well, you can go to our website at moa.org and look under careers and see the full list of transition services and support that we provide to veterans.
That's awesome. And Karin, how can folks get support from Monster? And Monster, it's military.com and monster.com, right? But we're talking now really about military.com.
Yeah, but it is the combined resources of both organizations that make what we're able to do for both veterans and employers so powerful.
So how would they get a hold?
I'm sorry?
How would they get a hold of you? Or how would they get a hold of the site? Just go to military.com?
Yeah, go to military.com. Really easy to navigate to the veteran employment section. You'll be presented right away with companies that are eager to hire veterans, and that would be my guidance and advice to Brendan as well, is stay calm and stay confident. There are companies that would prefer to hire you for their project manager jobs than hire a civilian. So focus on finding that company that realizes the benefits that you bring, and they will be clamoring to hire you.
Awesome.
But you can use our military.com skills translator tool and our company profile pages in the veteran employer section to find employers who are actively seeking to hire veterans.
Great. And I want to thank our guests, Andrew Morton, Karin Childress, and Brendan Devine, and Pat Coles. I want to thank MOA for lending Pat to us today, and also for Sherm for lending us Andrew. And thank you, Monster.com, for supporting us with Karin. These have been great resources. So you're here with You're Hired. I'm your host, Lorne Epstein. You're listening on 96.7 WERA, Arlington, Virginia.